300 million. That's how many times K-Pop Demon Hunters has been watched by this point. Imagine if you had a movie that's been seen 300 million times. I want to explore what makes this movie such a hit and how we can create more movies like this, because let's be honest, we're all craving good cinema. And I want to break this video into two main parts. The first is about the animation and the second is about the story. And to say that the animation in this movie is just good is an understatement. The animation in this movie is world class. This has some of the best animated dances I think that have been ever put to screen. Everything is so snappy, it is so satisfying, and like even a simple scene like this one when they're practicing their dance, it feels so tactile and so real. The animators are just incredibly skilled and absolutely nailed it. They absolutely nailed it. So honestly, I tip my hat to the animators because the animation is absolutely incredible. And that's not even to mention the super fun and obvious like anime expressions that happen in the movie and the cool lines that they use on the face and things like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And honestly, this is just a beautiful movie. Not just from an animation perspective, but like the way it looks is absolutely gorgeous. And there's three aspects to that look that I think really set this movie apart. And that's the mood, the lighting, and the bokeh. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me show you. This is one of my favorite setups in this movie, I think, and it's kind of hard to explain why, but everything looks so nice and cozy, but it's also really moody. Something that's moody just means that it takes place in a dark location, but this scene here takes place in a pretty dimly lit, I mean, what is this? Is this a living room or a restaurant? And so what we've got is we've got a light coming from up here, and if I were to rate like the moodiness, like if this is like a mood chart, you know, I'd put it right about there. It's pretty decently moody, and it makes the scene just feel really cinematic, which that word is thrown around way too much, but here's what I'll say. There's contrast across the frame, but not just across the frame, but across the focal points of the things that we're looking at. So we have this light coming from up here, and it's casting light onto all of the characters. So we have the bright spot here on Zoe, but then right underneath her, we have a pretty dark spot in the shadow. Another thing that this movie uses a ton is soft lighting. If you look at all these characters, the wraparound on the lighting of the face is super gentle. Zoe has barely any shadow. There's a slight dark spot on this side of her face. And then Rumi, here you can see very nice, gentle, slow roll off of the light as it goes across the face. It just makes it look really nice. And while there's not a ton of bokeh in this particular shot, the mood is amazing and the lighting is also really nice. And just to illustrate the importance of lighting, I came up with this little scene here using Blender. This is a scene with absolutely no lighting whatsoever. So if there wasn't any lighting and it was just the environment, this is what it looks like. And honestly, it's pretty bland. But if we wanted this to take place midday or like under a street light or something, then this would start to look something like this. And the difference here is that this is harsh lighting. The light source is coming from here, but the shadows that it's casting are very hard. It creates this cool triangle shape on the cheek, but it's a harsh light that kind of cuts across the face. Which there's definitely a time for hard lighting like this, but it's not what this movie decided to go with. Instead, what it uses soft lighting, and look at the difference here. To me, this looks a lot more natural. So we have the exact same source of light. The only difference now is that if you look at the roll off of the light on the face, it is so much more gradual and so much more gentle. So we still have our dark spot here. So there's still some contrast and depth being created, but it's not so harsh. And if you were to compare the two, I mean, which one would you rather look at? I'd be willing to bet that it's the one here on the right, and I can say that because K-Pop Demon Hunters uses this method the entire movie. Now, the creators did mention that they received inspiration from various sources for the lighting of this movie. They looked at music videos, they looked at a little bit of anime, they looked at editorial photography, they looked at K-dramas, and so I grabbed this random screenshot from a K-drama, and what do you know? Looky here. What do we got? We've got a shadow side here, but we've got a light coming from up here, This lighting is very flattering, so it makes the characters look more attractive. It just makes the movie more appealing in general. This is a very conscious decision by the animators. Now, one thing that's kind of crazy about this movie compared to a lot of animated movies is that so much of it takes place at night. Almost half of this movie has dark environments. And I don't know what it is with animated movies that like they're always like midday, they're always soft lighting. This one takes place at night, and so it creates so much more moodiness, and it actually contributes to the story so much more by doing that. Okay. Zoe is the best. I love it. She's so funny. Anyways, what do you know? What do you know? Look at how soft this lighting is once again on the face. Super soft. It makes her look really flattering. And of course, in the background, her ear is out of focus. The background doesn't even matter because what is she doing? She's in a dreamlike trance, just staring at the poster of the Saja Boys. That's what's happening here. And the movie uses this a lot. It will turn the background into just complete blurry mush, satisfying mush, beautiful mush. But the background just completely fades into irrelevancy to bring your attention, of course, to the character, but also to put the character in like a dreamlike state. And they quite literally put them in a dreamlike state by using bokeh for a musical sequence. They have these bokeh elements in the background to emphasize just the dream that they're kind of living. And also, what do you know? What do we have? We have a soft lighting with a gradual roll off. It's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. But there are times when they do use harsh lighting for very powerful effects. So we have the light coming from up here, and in no other time in the movie do we get this. We actually are getting harsh shadows. This is the only time in the movie when there's shadows like this, and it's because it's an emotional moment. It's a distraught moment. And so not only do we have to use the harsh shadows, but we have to add more moodiness. This is in a dark setting. There's a spotlight highlighting only her. She's center frame. We're seeing her panic. Her pose showcases that she's freaking out. Everything in the background is blurry because nothing matters, because everyone sees her. She's exposed for who she truly is. And they break the rule of their lighting because you won't find it really anywhere else in the movie. But by making this one moment have harsh shadows, it makes it stand out, and you feel the impact of her panic here. This is like the quintessential lighting setup for this movie. There's a bright side of the face, there's a dark side of the face, and then we have a rim light on the face. So there's like 3 points in the lighting here. There's the soft roll off, there's soft roll light from the rim, and it makes your characters look good in every scenario, especially when the characters are performing. This is the type of lighting that they go with because it makes them look cool no matter what. No matter what they're doing, they're gonna look cool. And so you have a rim light here like this. You have a little bit of a shadow part on the face. It's gonna add depth and contrast to the face and to the character and to the scene, but it's also just going to make your character look cool. And because we want to make this character look epic, if we put this on a pretty dark, contrasty background, because look at how dark the background is and look at how light the character is, it really makes her pop out of the background because she's killing it here. So if you want to recreate this type of lighting for any of your projects, look no further than something like this. You have a light side, have a bit of a shadow, have a rim light. That's what this movie does 80% of the time, and it makes everything look great. The whole movie looks absolutely beautiful, and the visuals just complement the story that is being told so perfectly. And that's another important part about making a movie that's going to get 300 million views, is that you have to make a good story, because a good story is rewatchable. Bad stories aren't very rewatchable. Seriously, if the story sucks, there's no point in having a beautiful movie. I've watched plenty of movies that have great visuals, but they're such a slog to get through because they're so boring. They suck. Story has such a huge effect on the rewatchability of a movie that you have to get the story right if you want anything to matter. And so the visuals are important, but only in the service of the story, because the visuals, they make the story digestible. They make the story pleasing to watch. And the makers of this movie are very creative with the music and the animation. But the story is what's happening underneath, and the story is the most important part. So you need a movie so good, it's worth rewatching. Now, if you were to answer this question, what would you say the story of this movie is? A lot of people would probably just say, oh, the hunters have to rid the world of demons through their song. And that's a part of it, but I think the heart of the story is really more about Rumi versus herself. And this is a common story we've seen a lot. And so although stories are hard, there is a formula. You just have to stick to the formula. And this story, K-Pop Demon Hunters, follows the hero's journey. So if you've never heard of the hero's journey, it's kind of like a 12-part cycle that kind of explains the stages of a movie. And so to explain the hero's journey quickly, you start in the world. You establish the world. Where do the characters live? Where does the movie take place? Then there's a call to adventure. The character refuses the call, but then they meet the mentor, and the mentor helps them cross the threshold. They're tested, they have allies, they make enemies, but then they have to turn inwards and prepare for major change. So there's some type of conflict, there's some death, maybe some rebirth, and then there's some type of reward for overcoming this. And once that's done, there's a road back home where they're a different person with new life, reinvigorated. And so even though they're in the same home, they're in the same world, they as a character are now different. They've changed. Well, K-Pop Demon Hunters follows this formula pretty much on point. So, I mean, let's just do that. Let's go through the movie with Rumi in mind, thinking about the hero's journey. The first, 10 minutes of the movie establish the world of the movie. There's an entire musical sequence just to get you familiar with the world that these characters inhabit. And straight up, this note from Rumi is only here so that you can understand just how incredible her voice is. And so they establish the ordinary world. Rumi's an amazing singer, she's an amazing fighter, she's a hunter, they fight demons. But then there's a call to adventure when, oh crap, we learn as an audience that Rumi is part demon. Okay, what does that mean? Well, the movie could actually end at this point. If Rumi just turned to her friends and confessed and said, hey, this is what's going on, I need your help, the movie could be over. That's it. The problem is, you don't have a movie if that happens. And so Rumi refuses to accept it, but then she finds a mentor in the shape of Jinu, and he helps her the best he can with overcoming her patterns. So she makes allies with Jinu, but this causes her to keep even more secrets from her friends, which adds extra strain to their relationship. And she prepares for change the best way she knows how, which is to push the Golden Album further and to work harder and just force this Golden Honmoon to work. The problem is, Jinu is on his own hero cycle, except he's at this point. There's a call to adventure for Jinu, but he refuses to accept it, and that makes him susceptible to manipulation by the big bad. And so because of that, Rumi has to die in a sense. She succumbs to her weakness. She succumbs to the demon side of her. And so there's a consequence for her actions, which is her friends betray her, and she gives up on life. She goes to Celine begging for her to end it so that everyone else can be safe. This is the lowest of low points for Rumi, and yet this is where she decides that she's going to push forward and make a change. So there's a new challenge, but she's rededicating herself and pushing back. So she's on the road back to redemption. Then there's a final stand, and there's some last minute danger where Jinu has to risk his life in order to save Rumi. But because of that, she defeats the Demon King. And with this, we complete the cycle. Rumi returns to the world, except now she is a changed person. And there you go. The hero's journey works for all movies. And a lot of really good movies just use the hero's journey, whether they intend to or not, because it's a formula that works over and over. Movies are great because we get to see how characters are being tested, and we get to watch how they respond, because the way that the characters in a movie overcome their challenges kind of shows us how we can overcome our challenges too. And so the result of a story like this is you feel uplifted and inspired, and that's a great thing to feel good after the movie, because that makes you just want to watch it again. A good story like this makes a movie rewatchable over and over and over, but it also makes a movie shareable. It makes you want to watch it with other people. And so the combination of just beautiful visuals throughout the entire thing, a fantastic story that leaves you uplifted and inspired, creates an equation that just begs for this type of movie to be shared and watched with other people over and over. I've watched this movie 3 times with different groups because I wanted to introduce it to them. And so this video isn't all encompassing. These are just some of the things that I think filmmakers can learn from K-Pop Demon Hunters to make their own films even better. And if there's one thing that K-Pop Demon Hunters proves, it's that people are not sick of movies that have universal themes. Movies that show people how to overcome themselves, how to better themselves. And if anything, people want it more than ever before. And that's what I want to see more in movies. I want more movies like K-Pop Demon Hunters. I want more movies that are original, that have good music, that have good themes, and that encourage people to improve themselves and show how to do that with characters that are well written and well rounded and have flaws. But with that, thank you so much for watching. I gotta go listen to the soundtrack one more time.